Hello and welcome to another video from Tailored English Online. I'm Rachel Watson, a teacher at Tailored English Online, where we offer personalized instruction for professionals as well as adolescents using Skype. Today I'm going to tell you about several things that surprised me when I visited Moscow in three main categories: people, food, and the metro. Why Moscow? Well, right now I have a lot of students who are based in Moscow, and I just think that many of them will appreciate this video as well as enjoy sharing it with their friends. But also I think that anybody who hasn't been to Moscow before could find this information interesting. So, first off, people. The thing that everybody told me, in preparation for visiting Moscow is people are really serious and they don't smile in public. If you smile at people, they will think that you have some kind of mental problem. Yes, when I arrived, it was interesting to actually experience that, even though I had been prepared with that expectation. It is still a little bit strange to walk around and not see really anybody cracking those smiles, except maybe at children. That's the main exception. But I do feel like that's just a slight exaggeration in the urban situation. I mean, in New York, you also don't really see very many people smiling at each other in the metro or on the street, unless they're tourists who recognize each other from Wisconsin. Once I got to know people, or not even get to know them well, but was just introduced to them and had a chance to have a conversation with them, they're so warm, so welcoming. My students were so insistent that I couldn't stay in some hostel, bed and breakfast while I was in Moscow. No. I had to come and stay with them. And so that was really great. I got to have some home stays. I'll never forget, I was staying with one of my students a little bit to the north of Moscow, and she lives with her in-laws. And we had meals together, and they wouldn't let me help. I couldn't help cook. I couldn't help carry things. I couldn't help clean. Nothing. You were a guest. And also, we were going out one night. My student was being nice enough to take me to see something. And her mother-in-law saw that I was going out in a skirt. I mean, a long skirt, but a skirt and ankle boots. And so there was some skin showing. She was really worried that I was going to be too cold because it was October. And I didn't feel like it was that cold of a night. I felt confident going out and, just waved her off. Well, the next day I come down to breakfast. We're getting ready to go into the city for something else. And the mother-in-law presents me with this huge pair of socks. I mean, I've never owned a pair of socks like this before. They were like this big folded up, this tight woven pair of socks that when I put them on, they came all the way up to my knees. And I just thought that was really great because this woman and I had basically not had any conversation whatsoever because I knew maybe 20 phrases in Russian. But she accepted me like family. And I feel like every time I was introduced to people, I was really just brought in to the circle. I expressed a desire to one of my students to go out on a Friday night or a Saturday night and experience some Russian nightlife. And she organized a little party of her friends, and we went around, and we didn't just stay in one place because they wanted to make sure I got to, experience a few flavors of Moscow nightlife. So yeah, if you get the opportunity to go to Moscow, I really encourage you to go and be willing to see how you can make connections with people, because once you get past that, urban protective exterior, they're really, really warm, really welcoming, very hospitable, and generous. So I felt like I knew some things already about Russian cuisine, but when I got to Moscow, I was surprised. There wasn't as much cabbage and brown bread as I had expected. So I really enjoyed getting to taste various cuisines because there's so many different nations that actually make up Russia. So there are a lot of different flavors and cuisines that you can try. Plus there's the peripheral states whose cuisine is also on offer in Moscow, like Georgia. Other things that surprised me about food in Russia, the insistence for children that they need to eat soup. Several mothers I spoke to said, no, soup is very good for children. My children eat soup every day or nearly every day. And I even asked some kids about this. Actually, a corollary to that, I was surprised to find out that apparently caviar is very good for children, or at least that's the perception. When I finally tried caviar for the first time, it was in Moscow. And my student who was sharing this with me was telling me about how when she was a child, this was something that, was important to her parents to make sure that they were able to offer her caviar because it's so good for, development. So I had to look this up later because I was like, really? Because my parents didn't seem to think caviar was an important thing. And yeah, I guess there are omega-3 fatty acids, the same as like where we eat salmon in the United States. Caviar is the go-to in Russia. I think the last thing that was surprising to me in terms of Russian food was how much a traditional full meal, how much food that includes, like how many courses. One of my students and her mother took me out to Cafe Pushkin, and I was full well before the end of the meal, and I really didn't realize what this meal was going to be. I think otherwise I would have fasted in preparation and really paced myself more than I did. But it was an amazing meal. Everything was delicious, but it was just impossible to eat all that food. Slightly related to food, I was surprised to learn that cool young Russian professionals, at least, do not drink vodka. Yeah, I sort of assumed, vodka, it's like a Russian traditional beverage. When I was in university, it was a big deal when we would, pool our money and purchase like real Russian vodka. But when I went out with my students, they were like, no, we don't drink vodka. People don't drink. You want to get a mojito? I'm like, I can't drink a mojito in Moscow. It just doesn't seem right. The third category of things that I found surprising was the metro. And I knew that Moscow had a metro that is well known for being efficient and beautiful, but there's just nothing to describe the reality. You just have to go there and you have to experience it. They're huge. I mean, there's so much space in a metro station. And I mean, in New York, when you have like 2 or 3 lines that come through the same place, there's one station. I mean, there might be different platforms, but it's basically like all in the same place. But in Russia, these platforms are so huge that if you have 3 lines that seem to go through the same place, no, it just means they're connected by tunnels. They're really not close together at all. And if your friend says, oh, I'll meet you at this station, and you're like, oh, well, I'm on this other line, and the station goes there. No. You need to factor in another 10 or 15 minutes to actually get out to the other station. So yeah, size, art, there's all these like tile mosaics and sculptures and chandeliers. I mean, yeah, it's amazing. So beauty, efficiency, Moscow trains come all the time, really quickly. They are every 2 minutes. I think the longest time I ever had to wait for a train was like 5 minutes, and it was in the evening. So that's amazing. The last thing that I found surprising about the Moscow Metro is how many people actually go through there. I made the mistake twice of getting caught in rush hour, once in the morning, once in the evening. And these huge stations with these enormous tunnels get packed. It was just trying to get into the station was like boop, 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 you know, inching forward like sardines all pressed together. Very, very claustrophobic. And it stayed like that all the way down, trying to get into a train. You know, you had to wait for 2, 3, 4 trains to go through before you could get yourself in. Then the train is actually jam-packed full. So if you're going to Moscow as a tourist, just sleep in late. Don't even try during rush hour. It's not fun. And sit in a cafe or do something else during the evening. Rush, it's just not a pleasant experience. So there you go. Three major categories of things that I found surprising. People, turns out that they are super warm and hospitable and are going to welcome you in as one of their own. Food, lots of variety, lots of delicious things, and some surprising things that children should eat. And the metro, size, beauty, efficiency, and how packed it gets. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll check out our channel for some other videos by Tailored English Online.